Hey everybody, this is VetX here. This is pretty much a pilot episode of a new segment. I'm gonna be starting here, hopefully, as a weekly segment for my channel here on YouTube. It's gonna be called Veterans Corner, and it's basically gonna consist of me just giving my thoughts on things that are going on in the metagame, maybe other things about the Pokemon games that are out right now. Some things, maybe news that's coming out for upcoming games and stuff like that. Again, I'm your host VetX, and hopefully this will get big enough that I'll be able to get some guest hosts onto the show, have some conversations, maybe some debates about sets, strategies, things like that. Like I said, this is the pilot episode for this little series I want to try and get going here. So it's going to be much shorter than the actual thing would hopefully be. And this was sort of inspired by a couple things. I recently, obviously, made my YouTube account and actually started uploading things, thanks to some friends. And I was inspired to do this segment actually by the Smog and Smogcasts, funnily enough. And as I was reading some of the comments on there, on some of the more recent Smogcasts, there were some people that were really complaining. They were legitimately complaining and whining and bitching like little girls about the hosts of the Smogcast. Seven Deadly Sins, Idiot from Mars, that other guy, and yeah, I don't remember all their names. I don't do names. I do faces, and it's kind of hard to remember somebody's face when you don't ever see it. Yeah. But anyway, I was reading those comments of people complaining about the hosts, and I tried to put myself in their mindset. I'm like, okay, so you're complaining that the hosts aren't taking it seriously. There's too much laughter. I understand. I really do. I know where you're coming from. You're playing a video game geared towards 7 to 12-year-olds. There should be no laughter, no smiles, no semblance of humor or happiness whatsoever. No, you're dumb. Are you seriously taking Pokemon that seriously? If you are, I really recommend getting your head checked. It's Pokemon. Yeah, sure, I play competitively. Plenty of other people play competitively. But getting that serious over it, that they're like, oh my god, no, you can't be laughing and making jokes and saying shit that's not really related to Pokemon when you're supposed to be talking about Pokemon. It's Pokemon. Seriously. It's not that serious of a thing. But anyway, enough about that rant. Let me get on to a couple of points here. Yeah, Pokemon Black and White versions have been out in the US and the UK for few weeks now. Actually, a little over a month and a half. Actually, more than that. Almost 2 months. I just realized that. April's almost over. Holy shit. Cool. Almost summer vacation. Awesome. Anyway, so Black and White have been out for roughly 2 months in the US and everywhere else in the world. While it's been out since forever in Japan, because they always get the good stuff first. Isn't that just always the case? By the way, speaking of Japan, my thoughts and prayers go out to all the families still dealing with the crisis from the earthquake, the tsunami, the nuclear problems that they've got going on there right now, all the radiation around the area, that's bad stuff. And it really pains me to see things that terrible happening to an entire country. But then you look at it and it's so funny. Not the fact that it happened, but people are actually helping each other there. you don't see, or at least you don't hear about, people rioting, people stealing shit from everybody else's house, the houses that are still standing, or shoplifting, or whatever. And it that's kind of that little ray of sunshine in the storm, and it's really good to see that, because people helping each other in times of crisis like that, that's important. That's good stuff. But back to Pokemon. I'm sorry for all you people that think I'm not taking this seriously. So Black and White have been out for a while now, and we're getting closer and closer to having some actual tiers. Smargan has been hard at work, with their suspect testing. We pretty much got a roughly finalized ban list of what we can and cannot use. And hey, that's a start. At least we know what we can't use in the standard metagame, what we can't use in standard OU and under battles. We don't have OU separated from UU and etc. yet, but we're getting there, and it's a start. So I'm happy about that. I actually just today, for the very first time, looked at Smoggin's reviews on some of the 5th gen Pokemon that they've got going on. And I saw some of the sets that they were suggesting. I'm like, that's kind of funny. I made that when it first came out. So hey, at least I know I was making something intelligent. But anyway, yeah. So I took a quick look at some of the Pokemon that they were reviewing, and I mainly took a look at the big names, as it were, taking a look at Excadrill, Terrakion, Reuniclus, who is amazing and I love, and, a few others. I think I altogether looked at maybe 6 out of the whatever. They had like 7 pages on their thread dedicated to different reviews for various Pokemon. Some of them, I was actually surprised that they didn't prioritize the Unova Dex Pokemon first. There were a lot of reviews for Pokemon of previous generations, and they're just updating them for 5th gen. And for most of them that were there, it wasn't very necessary. And I actually had a problem with that. I'm like, well, okay, if I'm going to spend some of my time looking at your sets, I want it to be stuff I haven't seen already. I was expecting to, see a Golurk set or something like that, but instead, I saw an Azelf set. And I'm like, sans not having Explosion, this is the exact same thing as I used as a lead for most of 4th gen, because Azelf was amazing, and he still is pretty good. The leads are a much different story nowadays. With Team Preview, which I guess I'm going to have to go on my rant about that now. Team Preview is a terrible idea. Whoever thought of that clearly did not have competitive battling in mind, at least in my opinion. I'm sure you could make the argument of, no, you see the opponent's team, and then that messes with their head or your head, and you can overpredict or whatnot, but in my personal opinion, it was just much better when you couldn't see every freaking Pokemon your opponent had on their team. Because, you can say whatever you want, but when it comes down to it, certain Pokemon on a person's team are going to have a much higher likelihood of leading rather than others. If I see a bunch of Pokemon that are usually walls, and then I see a freaking Zoroark or a Scarf user, at least something that typically uses a choice Scarf, I'm going to say to myself, oh, hi. They're probably going to lead with one of those. Most likely Zoroark. Zoroark is extremely common as a lead. Not as common as he was when 5th gen was first released on either the Pokemon Online Sim or on Wi-Fi when people had imported copies of Black and White and they were playing Wi-Fi. But he's still fairly common as a lead. And hey, that's great. But if I see a cloister leading, but I know my opponent has a Zoroark, there's a high likelihood that they're actually using Zoroark in disguise. And they think he's undercover and very incognito, but the fact is he's not.